Oyez, oyez. Throw a little Latin in there. Calling this to order at 6:01. Sorry for the tardiness. It's my fault because I have so many computers, I don't know which one to look at. So we're calling a special meeting of the Board of Trustees work session April 26, 2022 to order. We are opening the meeting. Mr. Baker, if you would call in attendance, please.
Ms. Ulrich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here. So we have one item this evening, and that's a work session on economic development strategic plan, in which we are going to attempt to put some definitions and some meaning behind what we mean by economic development so that we can have all oars moving in the same direction, which is always helpful. Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Board. Good evening. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and we are so fortunate to have our Development Director, David Miller, here to lead a conversation with the Board. I think you teed it up perfectly, Trustee Waller. Really, we're trying to get your vision for what economic development is and what is successful economic development for the township so that we can move full speed in that direction. With that, I'll introduce Development Director, David Miller.
Mr. Miller, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, and of course, Mr. Mills, and Ms. Ulrich, and Mr. Unger. Very nice to be with you. So, I want to just spend a little bit of time at the beginning and kind of tee this up, set the stage for us for the discussion, and then kind of lead us through a list of questions that I've put together and get your feedback, and we're going to take copious notes and see where you want to go. But just kind of starting with, again, looking back, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees in 2021, they adopted an Imagine Colerain comprehensive plan. A comp plan is very standard for communities when they do a very broad look at their landscape and everything that the community is about and develop a long-range plan. And certainly with the addition of a new member to the board since the adoption of that plan, clearly the economy has changed locally, nationally, and I think notably as well, the township administration has made some adjustments and plans to the structure of the staff and the adoption of a development department that is overseeing the planning and zoning part, but it's development centric with that very goal of putting a major focus on development. And so that's where I think a revisit to the comp plan and what a strategic economic development plan really looks like to the three of you, and get your feedback to ensure that we are adopting and enacting those ideas and plans that you want and going forward as far as economic development is concerned. Among the 11 priorities that the comp plan discussed, number one was economic development. It said that economic development is and should continue to be a major priority for Colerain Township moving forward. So I think, as Mr. Mills just said, near and dear to his heart, and it certainly is mine as part of my role. So what I'd like to do is just facilitate this discussion of a variety of the major issues that are related to economic development with just a series of prompts and questions for you and the board to draw consensus around these topics. So just let me provide some context from the plan. Said that public perception of the current economic development climate includes a broadly held fear, not a good word there, of declining retail and restaurant businesses and concern about the overall commercial tax base. And obviously that includes Northgate Mall. They noted blight and underutilization along the Colerain corridor. And then vitality of smaller neighborhood business districts and nodes of activity. And so Those are three particular concerns that the public had identified. There is a desire for more communication about economic development and small area studies around key sites and corridors. Good news. We have recently brought on a communication specialist, Helen State Tracy Noren, doing a fabulous job. Just last week, we had I guess you could say something notable related to a new development that's being built at Dairy Queen. You all passed that, of course, and so got final plans. She had 20,000 impressions on a tweet on Twitter. So, and that was before Elon Musk. So, nonetheless, people are interested in those types of topics, and that's what she is going to continue to do. Actually, Development Department met with her today, and we talked through what does this strategy look like as it encompasses development. She's going to do all departments, of course, but we created a strategy, and here's how we can partner together on getting this kind of news out. And we are nearing the completion of a neighborhood study for Groesbeck, developing a plan for them. The residents are engaged. We have a consultant that's helping us, and I think we'll be able to use that as a launching point for making Groesbeck more of a neighborhood that is growing and thriving. The comprehensive plan also noted that there is an understanding that partnerships will be necessary to help fuel the township's economy, that involving public and private partnerships at the regional and state and maybe even national level to disrupt those current trends that I've just noted, and to catalyze revitalization will be necessary. Stephen Springsteen in Development Department is here today. And I attended some training in Columbus recently, and I'm very happy to say that we made great relationships, grew great relationships with those regional and state partners. So Ready Cincinnati, Jobs Ohio, those are groups that we have very strong relationships with now that we'll be able to partner with them. We've got meetings coming up where we're discussing these development opportunities and hopefully see some progress from that. Clearly that catalyzation is going to have to include Northgate Mall. That's a big lift, and it's going to take us all rowing the same direction. So to best know, I like the way that this plan said this: where we are now, where we want to be, and how we're going to get there, right? We need an understanding of the different business sectors that we have and we want in Colerain. We need to know the market forces from within and without that affect development, because they don't exist in a vacuum. These development opportunities, businesses don't happen in a vacuum, and so there are forces that impact them. And then thirdly, the necessary infrastructure that would serve the existing and then the planned infrastructure that we want, the future development. So I'm just going to summarize just the 5 points from the plan that involve economic development, just to kind of prime the pump here for our discussion. Number one was to build capacity and enhance coordination among township personnel, residents, and stakeholders. So that's what they want. That's what the plan established as one of the priorities. And that would include establishing a development department. We've done that. How can we better use our Community Investment Corporation, our JED, organizations like that? How do we work with the chamber better? How can we be creative with tactical urbanism, mini grants? Number two, we would focus efforts on marketing and branding to encourage tourism, retain and attract an inward migration of residents and businesses, and to create tools to highlight investment opportunities. Just mentioned our communication specialist, Helen, is doing that, and we are moving forward quickly on that. Thirdly, establish a regulatory framework that fosters a redevelopment and business-friendly environment that benefits the township and helps us to achieve a broader vision. So a couple of the things that are underway right now, we have a vacant foreclosure property and rental registration programs that are underway. We're in the process of updating a comprehensive update of our zoning resolution. It was written a number of years back. There are some things that just don't work right now in this economy. So we're going to try to get a better perspective on what this economy looks like now and how can that help us be a tool in helping us move forward. Number 4, undertake an active role in real estate and community development projects throughout the township to reposition underutilized properties. We do have some of those. We tend to look at Colerain Avenue as very tightly built out, and it is. But there are opportunities that do exist still, and I think that those are the ones that we want to find, those underutilized properties, and help them achieve their highest and best potential, create a vibrancy. As I said, we're working with Ready Cincinnati, working with Duke on Duke Utilities, Duke Energy on some industrial campuses. We're working with Rumpke on how we can develop that industrial park up there. There's opportunity there. Then lastly, establish and expand policies and programs, partnerships that would support the development of businesses and an innovative entrepreneurial ecosystem. So that's all part of the comprehensive plan. A lot of initiatives right now in the development department I'm excited about, and let me again begin with this 30,000-foot view of asking you, what should the development department focus on in 2022, 2023? As we zoom in, that comprehensive plan discusses several areas that we would consider. So I'm just going to kind of walk through those one at a time. We'll discuss those topics. So in the area of housing, do we want more housing? No matter what type? What types of housing would we want? Is it single family? Is it multifamily? Both? What should the density target be? How many people do we really want in a particular neighborhood space? It's going to be dictated by what type you have, obviously, right? What level of partnership should we undertake with a developer as an incentive? How much infrastructure do we help with? What do the utilities look like? Roads. Those are questions, I think, that help guide that housing component. So let me throw it out there and see if we got comments.
I have one. One of our fastest part of our growing population is over 65. And being a realtor, there is a definite need for downsizing. We do not have a lot of available one-level attached garage units. And let's face it, and when you go into an over 55 community, it doesn't require the school buses and a lot of road structure where it's going to be a lot of usage. I just think that's a very big need for Colerain.
That's good.
And at the same time, you do need to have a market that you keep younger families coming in, folks with kids. And, single-family homes seem to provide a different level of stability in a community. My wife and I are empty nesters. One of the things I found, and Kathy, I wonder how many older folks you have looking for ranches. My neighbors are moving out of their
Ranches are hard
two-story
to
for
come
that
by.
very reason. That said, the kids who are in their 20s, they live outside of Colerain Township, but they both rent apartments at this point in their life. And I would hope that as they move into the get married stability phase, that they would, have their money tied up in real estate rather than paying rent to somebody. In addition, you talk about what's currently going on in the market. A lot of people are finding it's the best investment to have their money tied up in their house or improvements to their property. Just because the stock market, if you listen to it every day, especially for the last 2 or 3 months, it is just taking an absolute beating every day because of a lot of government spending in the last 2 years is starting to catch up. And, Dow Jones loses 320 points one day and 500 the next. And I just think there's a lot better, safer place for people to put their money right now, and that's in either remodeling their homes or building new ones. You talk about what's going on currently in the economy. These last 2 years have certainly been different than any other time in my life.
Well, to reiterate on that, over half of our sales in Colerain were first-time buyers, and a lot of our first-time buyers were in the 200,000 income bracket. The 200,000 sales price, because the interest rates being at 2.5–3% allows them to afford more house versus paying the high demand for rent right now.
Right, yeah, but more houses.
Right,
I
so
mentioned
in
my
first-time housing, we were looking at starting at 200.
the house next door to my previous house that I lived in. When I sold my house next door to that 18 years ago, it sold for 124. The identical house next door just sold for 180 last week, which
right.
is, a 35% increase over what it was 15 years ago. But I personally think a lot of those prices are inflated, and I'm looking for some of the stuff that's going out for $200,000 and $300,000. I don't see how the market's going to sustain at that level.
Well, we didn't see increases in real estate for 10 years, so we're kind of making up for that loss over those last 10 years.
We all think what we think. I just think it's really, I've seen a real estate crash in my lifetime, I guess about 18 years ago.
I sold a lot of real estate.
2006,
a lot of foreclosures back then, yes.
and it just goes up and down. So, yeah, lots of different moving parts with housing for sure.
It sounds like single family is certainly a high
Absolutely,
priority.
yeah.
Let me add, it goes up and down with some exceptions. And I think, let me put the onus on the other end of this discussion. I think the neighborhoods that retain value, you talked about retaining citizens, and the neighborhoods that build businesses, the one constant in all that is always educational opportunities. And I think that part of economic development is part of educational development as well. And that we can partnership with the Board of Ed, we can partnership with UC, we can partnership with Cincinnati State to bring those opportunities, because people will move here and stay. The more educational opportunities there are, because America is a fascinating study, because we will sacrifice for our kids, and we will do things future driven if we see educational opportunities. And then I think a lot of the businesses and a lot of the economic development comes because it's an educational destination. The other observation I'd like to make from a general point of view, and I've talked to Mr. Mills a lot about this too, this market for, getting interest from businesses and corporations and from people that want to locate here is somewhat different. I think today it's an experiential thing. People want to go to places where they can experience stuff, because you can get your groceries delivered by Kroger. You can get couches delivered by Amazon. You don't even need to leave your home. But the difference now is that it's an experience. Like Spooky Nook is going to be an experience. Like the idea, go to in Northern Kentucky, they have it's not associated with a school or anything. They have a gym, and there's thousands of people in there on weekends doing archery competitions. This is kind of, to me, the new economy, in that we need to have this experience. The other, the experiential element, and the other element of this is, I just saw this by Lieutenant Governor Husted today. There are 150,000 jobs on Jobs Ohio right now that pay over $50,000 a year. In fact, there are 3 jobs. Now, unemployment doesn't mean that there are 3 jobs for every unemployed person. Now, that doesn't mean that every person has the ability to fill that job, but just in terms of pure statistics. And I think that's a kind of an asset that already exists that we could take advantage of. So when I talk about economic development, I mean more of I think a pretty holistic view. And I really, no surprise, a guy that spent my entire life in education, I'm going to say that education is the driver of that bus when it comes to these kind of things. And you watch, even in 2008 with the housing crisis, There are certain neighborhoods that largely escaped it or escaped it pretty much unscathed, and the one characteristic those places had were educational opportunities.
I would ask Kathy would probably have some insight on this. In 2016, 2017, 2018, the Northwest Local School District replaced 3 buildings, Pleasant Run and Taylor and Struble. And what has that done to housing sales and housing values within an immediate radius of those buildings?
When we asked how much percentage of, I don't know how to put this, in a way that our new schools helped our students in the educational process, the building to me didn't seem, it was representative of nicer looking for the community, but I don't think we've seen the money with our kids, because we're still, scoring a D in our school systems.
Right, so the new buildings didn't have the great impact that we thought
No.
they might, or,
I don't think they did. That's my personal opinion.
but yeah, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't know that. I know that it's always nice to put something new in the middle of a neighborhood to revitalize the
And it looked-
neighborhood
it looked
and
wonderful.
maybe raise values a
Right,
little bit, but I didn't
I don't-
know if.
I haven't seen any of the test results that have come
Well,
out.
we've had barely any with COVID, but I don't know,
I know.
align the physical elements with educational opportunities. I mean, I teach in a school building that's 100 years old.
Right.
I mean, I think it's more than just kind of the structural. I think it's the opportunity. And I've often wondered, when we hired the people, and I forget the name of the company, to do the branding, the one thing that I looked at is they branded somewhere in central Ohio, and the brand that they had was education. And I could go back through my voluminous notes and find this, but they worked out something with a local university where if you stay in the community, you got a discount on tuition. To me, that's one of the things of retaining talent. I think there's a significant amount of brain drain that happens in Colerain, and that might be why we're in need of 65 and older, because now they become kind of empty nesters and because their kids have left. But I think that retention element is keeping the talent here, what we already have. And the problem is this is a very slippery and fungible question. It's a pretty, I mean, how do you get down to the specifics of doing that? Because you need to have a lot of stakeholders operating with a consistent long-term image that they share.
And that said, to clean up a little bit of what I just said, I am, and even at the time when I was on the school board, I'm all for replacing the infrastructure and updating it, which I think the 3 new school buildings are nice. It's kind of, my question was, has that raised interest or values of the homes in those neighborhoods? But, there's been a lot of other factors, namely COVID and people investing their money in real estate versus stocks or anything else. And so that was kind of what my question was. And I'm glad we have those 3 new school buildings, because the ones that were there were 50, 60 years old. And it's, if you don't replace stuff once in a while, all of a sudden you end up with a bunch of 100-year-old buildings, which is what Eller High School is. And it's a fine place. And I've been over there, and the stadium's 70 years old, I guess, and it's a fun place to go.
Still draws more of a crowd at 70 years old.
Let me tease that out a little bit more. One of the last question that I did ask: what level of partnership should we interact with a developer? What do we want to partner with them on as it relates to utilities or infrastructure, roads?
Well, a great.
How does those incentives play into an economic development plan?
Well,
in your
great
eyes?
question, and just one of 3 opinions on the big one up the street, Northgate Mall. That mall, I want to say it sold for 250-something million around the year 2000, around 200, maybe a little less than that in 2006 or 2007. In 2012, it was less than that, and now I think it's somewhere under 20. So, I mean, we've just watched the value of that fall by 90%. At some point, the people that own the building, I think there's 2 or 3 parcel owners up there, but at some point, they're going to sell it because they're going to get tired of paying the property taxes on it. There's way too much traffic flow up there for that to remain in its current state. That said, there are a few businesses in there that are hanging on, and whatever happens, I'd like to see them have the opportunity to be part of whatever the redevelopment is. But looking at all the loss that various owners and portfolios have taken on that property. I'm not so interested in a township as being a part of helping them recover the losses that happen naturally as the market devolved on retail in general. You know, and that's one of the things you mentioned earlier in your discussion about, oh, what's happening to the retail? Well, I don't buy a whole lot of stuff online, but a lot of people do. And that's what's happened to retail, is just people are ordering stuff and having it delivered to their houses. And I still prefer going in and looking at goods and buying them. And generally, by the time you're more settled like I am, you have a lot of what you already need, and you're not. My neighbor used to have Amazon coming every day delivering you know, basic house supplies to their house, and I was just thinking, Chip, what are you doing over there? You've got Amazon showing up every day, but that's kind of what's happened with retail. But with respect to the mall, we're going to have to let the free market kind of decide what's going to happen with that property. I don't necessarily want to get involved in it to the tune of, you know, millions and millions of dollars. I'm happy to turn it into a tax increment finance district. I think at some point, as we talk about the mall during this little bit of time that the three of us.
That's the fourth topic. Right now, we're just on housing.
Right, okay.
My question really was, again, geared specifically toward housing.
Right, and we have developed a plan, and I'm hopefully you shared it with David because it was before he was here. We have a sort of a site plan for the mall area that includes housing that we had, and that's the one that's about 2 years old, so that a developer could look at that and yes, I'm with that, but I mean the folks who develop that and benefit off of it are going to, you know, be the chief financiers of it. I certainly would work with Duke and Waterworks and MSD to do whatever the township could do to get out of the way so they could install the infrastructure needed. But I'm not so interested in paying for that out of township funds when we have a lot of other priorities.
One of the tools that I recently researched was a new community authority. Think of it similarly to an HOA, homeowners association. If you're part of this neighborhood, this residential development, you're going to pay a fee based on the services that you're receiving from the HOA. So an NCA could be used for something like that infrastructure. So those that want to move into that neighborhood, then they realize that's part of their fee until they get that paid off. So that could help that developer provide an incentive, so the developer is able to provide the infrastructure. Maybe it reduces their development cost overall to get that residential neighborhood developed. So that's one of the tools I think that I'm kind of referring to. Okay. Whether it's a new community authority, or once again, maybe we're able to TIF a project where we can
Right.
help provide some of that infrastructure for them, whether it's utilities, it's roads, you know, some kind of.
Well, and with respect to sovereign development, where there's going to be a bridge built, that bridge will be paid for by the developer paying himself back out of the improved or increased value of the neighborhood, and the township will not be on the hook with that. I'm all for doing anything we can with the mall property that doesn't so much involve money coming out of the township, but in some sort of tax increment finance scenario where the increased value of the property went to pay for some of the improvements, which is what tax increment financing is. But, you know, one of the things previous to when I started here is the relationship between the school district and the township was a little bit different. So I would ask you to consider reaching out to the school district and seeing what their level of participation would be. They're a lot bigger entity than we are. You know, we're a $40 to $42 million budget, and they're well over 100. And they're the ones that are going to benefit in dollars more off of the improved value of that property. So I would ask that you and the administration figure out how to go to them and say, you know, you're going to benefit from this. Are you interested in being a part of it at this level, or you just want to wait until it's all built out and then benefit? So talk to them and see what they're willing to throw into the pot, if anything. And if there's something, great. And if there's nothing, then we'll figure that into the way we deal with it.
And one thing that Mr. Waller did mention, if I might just mention, you're saying work with the schools. We recently had a meeting where we sat down with school board reps and we talked through a sidewalk plan. the sidewalks add value to neighborhoods. It makes it easier for students and families to be able to get access to school when they don't have public transportation from the school. So that is something that we are actively pursuing and working on. And so I think that we have a very good relationship and a partnership with them, and that is something that is part of our
It's
goal.
absolutely critical we
It is.
involve them in this decision, but where I'm heading with this is some of the increased revenue they're gonna get if an improvement's made, I would hope they'd be willing to, kick that back into the property in the form of the tax increment financing proposal.
Okay.
So I wanted to answer this in kind of a general level, because I take it your question is what type of assistance from the township financially would we be willing to provide for developers? And for me, the answer to that is I'm not little to very little. I think that we have land is a commodity that they're not making any new land. I'm not for any abatements. I want a TIF as much as I can so that we could get the advance payments in lieu of taxes, and save that last lever if we need to, like Sovereign, to use it as a negotiating attempt to get what we want. In the case of the Sovereign development, it was to get some to get the roads kind of designed the way we wanted, and to make sure it was single-family homes and fit the kind of fit the character of the community. I think that there's enough money for developers to make, and I think again, as we build up. I think we're doing great now, but as we continue to build up Colerain, we see now we haven't given any abatements and things like that, and we've got an explosion of construction. So I guess my answer to you is, I'm not in the business to help the developers. I'm in the business to help the people, Colerain. But if we need to use it as a negotiating leverage, absolutely, we will do so. If there's something that we feel is going to be detrimental to the best interest of the township. But other than that, I mean, I think right now it's a good time for people to build in Colerain and to provide abatements and things like that are kind of, I'd have to be really bowled over by something.
Abatements have not been a tool that we have
Right.
been pursuing,
Right.
clearly. The TIFs are that major advantage. I
But
think that
the TIFs aren't
helps.
aid to the developer, it's, right.
except in those sovereign type circumstances. And I think, again, creatively using those, we
We
can.
had talked about if you offer one developer this, what's the next one going to want from us? So, yeah, I think you have to set a precedent that you're just not going to give the town away.
All right, we'll move on to the second topic, manufacturing. So we currently have 4 manufacturers in Colerain, and 3 out of the 4 are looking to expand. And we are trying to work with them, partner with them every way we can, assist them, bring in those regional and state partners as well. We're pleased with progress, albeit it's always slow, but nonetheless. So I think I would just ask a similar question. What investments do we need to make in order to keep the ones that we have or to attract more? What types of manufacturing would that look like? So clearly, when you have an Intel, okay, that's the 900-pound gorilla in the room, right? They're going to have, I think it was upwards of 120, 140 ancillary businesses and manufacturers that are going to feed into Intel. So, that's something that we're looking at regularly on how we might be able to offer sites to those feeder manufacturers into Intel. So I know Mr. Waller's brought this up in the past as well. How can we partner with them? What can we do to position Colerain better? Any thoughts on that?
A couple of years ago, Jeff had been working with, and I don't know if anything ever came of that, Mr. Mills, but a company that was going to locate up in the Struble Road Development Park that would have the ability to use the flow of materials that comes into Rumpke and mine through those and pick out various materials that could be recycled or turned into energy, or I forget what that project was. It was a couple years ago, but we never heard anything else about it.
Yes.
What was that?
Yep, that was a prospect that we were working with. It's referred to in the industry as a dirty MRF, material recycling facility. That means that all of the feedstock is commingled. It's garbage. You put everything into your garbage can, recyclables and everything else, and then that waste truck dumps it onto the tipping floor, and then they have processes to separate everything. And so, yeah, we were pursuing that prospect, but it didn't materialize.
Right.
Which is how 95 or 98% of economic development is pursuing prospects and hoping that it's one of those 2% rather than one of the 98%.
And getting to that end, where the land, open land is, as we still have the Struble Road Development Park, that really not a whole lot has happened there yet. But my thinking is where you're heading is to put something up there that would draw some other businesses. And I was hopeful that, and it still might happen, that with Rumpke's new headquarters, that some of the vendors that service them, they have their hydraulic shop, for instance, up in Ross. There's a lot of other businesses that service them, people that would work on their trucks or people that would provide benefits to their thousands of employees. And, there's an opportunity there to draw in somebody that would be a vendor to that very large company that has so many moving parts. A lot of people think they're up there tipping trash over the hill, but they employ thousands of people, and there's all sorts of things you need to do to keep those, thousands of employees going every day. And a medical facility, for that matter. I know we had talked about one down right by Burnside, which I can't think of who that was 2 years ago. Mercy Health was looking down there. Dr. Mattingly, we had talked about that. We don't really have the medical facilities that you see down at Western Ridge or other places. So that's somehow there must be a way to encourage a place like that to be around some of our larger employers.
I agree with the more medical, which is not manufacturing, and manufacturing requires more acreage, which requires light industrial zoning, correct? And we do not have any light industrial zoning in Colerain Township, so we can't attract.
rezone. Yeah,
So those are
challenge.
zoning laws that you're gonna have to go through and redevelop some areas.
I think that's part of our re-examination
Right.
of the zoning resolution and getting a comprehensive look at it. And again, where do we want to go? Where are we now? Where do we want to go? What does the future look like? So I think that's something that you'll have a say in as we get those drafts of the resolution.
When you're talking a medical facility, you go on Western Ridge and you have the Christ and Mercy and everybody, and they go to lunch, that's gonna support all your local restaurants right away, just with a medical facility and people coming in and out of there, with all their tests, and that's a nice draw. If we could get a nice facility like that, that would be terrific for Colerain.
Yeah, it would be fabulous.
So I'd also add that I want to be aggressive about this. I mean, I think that, what's the old movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, ABC, always be closing? Trying to always get the folks, I want to go after them. I know that there's an individual I know that has a Cincinnati manufacturing plant, and every time I see him, I'm like, how's it working out for you in Cincinnati right now? You having many tax issues? You having many property tax issues? What do your employees think about having to pay a city tax? And he's told me no 37 times, and he's going to probably tell me no 37 more times, but I'm not going to leave it alone. And the Intel thing, and you and I have talked about, I think this provides an interesting opportunity that there's talk of $100 billion economic impact over a 10-year period. And those 120 to 130 providers and vendors for Intel. First, Intel's going to be in New Albany. There's not enough houses around there to support that, so that's going to grow out that market. But also, they have kind of a boycott on suppliers where they have to be 50 miles or more away from the headquarters. The reason for that is so that they don't end up, suppliers don't end up taking Intel trained employees and hiring them. And that's going to push this out. So I think that this provides, first of all, I'm over the moon on the opportunity it brings for the United States to actually build our own semiconductors, and it's a national security issue, and it's something that's long overdue. But I think this is an opportunity for strategic growth that's going to continue to be with us for a long, long time, and I really want to push to get on the ground floor on that, because I think it's only going to increase. I mean, the Intel project, it's not one of those deals where it's, they're putting physical assets in the ground. So it's not, once they're there, it's going to be difficult for them to move. And from what I understand, it was where they selected in New Albany is the only land in Ohio that was large enough for that project. That's how big the project's going to be. So yeah, I'm a big fan of manufacturing, yes, and to seize the opportunities. I mean, what are the 3 of the 4 that are looking to expand? Who are some of their vendors? Can we shrink their supply chain by trying to encourage them to come over here? I think that and you use the word creativity. I think it's going to take creativity, and I think it's going to take grit, and I think it's just going to just take just kind of a never say quit attitude to get some of these folks to kind of relocate here and take advantage of those opportunities as the windows are open.
That's a great point of trying to find those vendors of the manufacturers that are potentially moving, expanding, and then see if those suppliers want to move into those. We don't want vacant buildings, so let's just drop another manufacturer in there.
And not in manufacturing, but the Duke Energy facility's been up and running for over a year now, and granted, COVID's kind of skewed everything, or the end of COVID did, but what's been the impact of that new facility? Has there been any new businesses across Colerain Avenue that support Duke? What's the other impacts there? And that's kind of an open-ended question. So a great development, which was an empty lot for 10 or 15 years, the various parts of it were, so.
That's a great question too. Do some research on that. See if there's a way to find some synergy between what they're offering, what their employees want, what suppliers. We'll move on to the third topic if you're ready. That would be retail and commercial. So we had a recent conference call with the chamber on incubators and accelerators with Dave Moravec and some of his chamber board members. Great discussion. What types of businesses are we lacking in Colerain? How can we help facilitate as a supporting organization to the chamber? That's one of their top goals is an incubator, and whether it's, again, there's a little bit of distinction between the incubators and accelerators, but what industries could bring some synergy to our existing businesses already in Colerain. So that's a discussion we just had. What would you say a commercial win looks like? Is it just another restaurant? What would you say we want to attract? What types of restaurants and entertainment do we need to round out what we currently have?
Not that I would be their biggest customer, which I wouldn't, but I've gone to other communities, and just the growth of all these small little batch brewing operations with connected restaurants seems to draw a lot of folks. I was very recently down at the corner of Spring Grove and Mitchell, and there's a place called Taft's Ale House, what it's called, down there, and we went down there and they had pizza, and we went in, and it's kind of a refurbished old warehouse type place, and but we were just there Saturday, and there was quite a few people in there, and I know that's come up in the past to develop that type of business, and I've got a friend who's a restaurant owner here, and he wishes there were more restaurants because his restaurant's always full, but he thinks that if there was a couple competing restaurants, that would draw even more people to the area where he's located out on Springdale Road.
I agree with the whole brewery and the venues that we can have, like Blue Ash, the parks, the bands, the breweries, the restaurants, downtown Hamilton, Municipal Brewery, the fret boards. I mean, I was there, and there's hundreds of people walking the streets. Well, you need that venue to have these people come to a concert, to go to the brewery, to bring them into your central business district. And I think we could extrapolate Northgate Mall into all of those. Get that venues in the brewery, the park, the walking parks for the dogs, the medical facility, so everybody's right there, and it's a vibing community. That's what the people want. Hyde Park, they want to walk. Everybody likes the walking distance. The Dora zones, it just seems to be thriving in so many other communities. Even during COVID, they were all thriving.
So I would suggest the one common thread you heard from both the other trustees was that, well, I'm going to put it in my view, Verge, you might disagree, is that it's not a commercial. It goes back to that, not a commercial win, but it's an experience. Mm-hmm. Every single one of those that both Mr. Unger and Kathy mentioned were experiences. I mean, Mad Tree and Taft Ale House is an experience.
Rheingeist, I like
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know that necessarily, and I don't know, I know there's been some discussion that the brewery trend might be close to maxing out because there are a lot of them. So I don't know. And that's not for us. What's that?
Not in Colerain.
Well,
It's quite an investment too.
right.
To get the licensure and that kind of stuff.
But my overall point is that sometimes there can be that experience in a different form that can take, I think my sister's exit in Loveland, they've got that sand volleyball thing is packed on a consistent basis. I don't even know the name of it. I just know that if you hit it at the wrong time, you're going to be sitting in traffic. It's an experience. What is it? Yes.
And I recently had passed along the name of Mr. Patel to you. I am
Having lunch with him Friday.
All right, great. I am the Township Association representative to the Convention Facilities Authority, and we meet quarterly, and he's on that board with me. And we had discussed, there's really no hotel in Colerain, and he said, well, part of that is you need to rely on business travelers rather than recreational travelers, and some of the other communities have a lot more reasons for business folks to come into that community with overnight stays, and part of that's because of manufacturers and other things, but that's one of those other businesses that would probably come along when some of these other things were developed. But I'm glad to hear that you followed up on that, and you're going to have a meeting with him Friday. That's great news.
Yeah, we talked about getting a hotel. I mean, you get business meetings, you get weddings. We're right between. If somebody wants to go to a Miami game, to a UC game, we are in a great location. We have very few wedding venues here in Colerain, and there's a lot of them that go to the hotels because they can stay, they can get dressed, and have the whole experience again. And so, yes, I would love for you to have a very successful meeting on Friday.
I think, too, the development of Spooky Nook in Hamilton could provide a lot of energy on a hotel development, maybe on this northern side of Colerain, where they're going to have a lot of athletes.
We talked about, they're talking about 40,000 cars a weekend coming in, and I did not believe that. I went to a similar one out in Indiana. Astronomical amount of cars. Indoor volleyball, hardball, softball,
Everything.
Gymnastic tournament, basketball. You had acres and acres of, and those are all those hour or 2 hour baseball games, volleyball, and they're out. And they just kept coming in all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so how do you get to Hamilton when you're coming from the west or the south? You got to go through Colerain. So I think we can definitely extrapolate on that volume of traffic coming through here.
I'm in. All right. Any last thoughts on retail, commercial?
My last comment would be getting back to the hotel and that. Over on Harrison Avenue, the new Hampton Inn is
Right.
being built, but it's kind of surrounded by a lot of retail.
Well, and Frank had said they have the Nathaniel Green, and that was one of the things when somebody was doing their wedding there, they were already renting, blocking rooms for
Right.
weddings at Nathaniel Green.
It's actually passed there this afternoon. It's coming along. It doesn't look like it's
Yeah.
too far out from being completed.
Right.
All right, well, wouldn't be a real discussion on economic development if we didn't discuss them all. Clearly, that is the center point of a lot of what we've are envisioning as bringing the phoenix up out of the ashes of our mall. We're no different than any other community that has one of these behemoths, and others are finding a way to repurpose that land. And clearly there's, and it is a primary focus for the development department, for staff of Colerain Township to find a way, actively seek opportunities for redevelopment there. We all saw the news for Tri-County Mall and Forest Fair and whatever other names that has been called. But I think we're primed for the next shoe to fall. We might call it that. Opportunities that are there. The vision, I think, clearly is a mixed use that would possibly include, I think, primarily, as we've mentioned multiple times, a civic space. It would be a location where Colerain residents can have community. They meet there for events. It would be some green space where you can take a walk. Maybe it's a little miniature dog park of some sort. Maybe it's surrounded with some residential and some retail, maybe some restaurants, some experiences, as Mr. Wallert continues to talk about. I think the vision clearly is there. I've had several discussions with representatives of some places over there, and they're seeing the same thing that we're all seeing. And the opportunities are there, and I think we just have to help them understand, if we can help them, that the facility that's left there has very little, if no value at all. It's really in the dirt. And they need to catch the same vision that we all have, and let's move together forward on this, and find a way to provide this center point for Colerain. I think it would be transformational.
I agree.
Very exciting. So I just want to make sure the board's in sync with that kind of vision as we attempt to move forward with that. And then, what would you say would be, that maybe you haven't already, would be a mandate for that mall redevelopment?
Well, going up to, Union Center, they've got Funny Bone, you can go listen to somebody, you got the bars, there's shopping, the residential, the apartments, the Dora zones, people can walk. Once again, experiences, something to go to. I
You
think,
mentioned Dora a couple times. I think would that be a mandate?
I don't want to say, but it seems to work, because, you can take your drink and you can go from this bar and you can walk here. I mean, if it's centralized, and it just when you're talking about that community spirit, you're not just sitting in this little area, that you can go around and talk to those people if they're listening to a band over here, or go maybe, it seems to be the trend right now, what's happening.
Right.
And being successful.
Mm-hmm.
And to make it work for any developer, the revenues that come off the increased valuation of it, and we talked about the tax increment financing, however whatever the free market calls for to be there is what's going to be successful. If we force something onto that property that's not going to be supported by the marketplace in the next 5, 10, or 15 years, we're going to have something that's not successful. So market forces are going to have a big sway in this, and any redevelopment that comes from us is going to be in the form of the tax increment financing paying for that. And that's why at the beginning of this discussion, I suggested we see, what the school board's expectations are out of the increased value. Are they just going to say, great, when it's built, let us know and start sending us the checks? Or are they going to say, hey, we understand that the revenue's not going to be there at first because, the increment financing needs to make some site improvements. And to your other comment, and to those watching and to those in the audience, this is great because the three of us can't sit down and have these economic development discussions, and this is our time and place to have them. So I'm glad to hear Matt and Kathy's other thoughts on this. And I guess that you can talk to us individually, but this is the first time we've really had this in-depth of a discussion. So thank you.
From my point of view, I'm reluctant to go into it with any kind of idea of what it should look like, because I think that the best chance we have to strike gold is to get a disruptor in there that's going to bring something that's none of us up here are thinking about, if that makes sense. It's just, and I don't know what that is yet. I mean, I understand that Westchester has some vacancies now. And there's that plan has been, I think Tri-County is going to be that. Are we headed to the direction where we're going to have too many mixed developments where old malls used to be? And are we, if so, would we be the last one without a chair when the music stops? I just think things do go in trends. And I think sometimes people that go with the trend often find that it could end negatively. But so I don't know. I would say be open to anything and everything for that. And I mean, I don't know what other options exist. But I think Dan's right, and it needs to have something that the market can obviously support.
Well, as we're talking about mixed use, if you do a hotel, green space, medical facility, we mixed use it.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to have to be something that's got a market demand so that it survives over the long term. Exactly. I know we're running out of time here, but I just, watching the news of what's gone on in the last 2 days where in our lifetime and everybody, I'm looking around this room, all of us remember 25 years ago when everything south of 3rd Street to the river was privately held, whether several different fruit warehouses, there was a stadium and a coliseum. And now everything south of 3rd Street is either tax abated or publicly owned. And now it's 22 years later, and all of a sudden the main people down there are like, hey, this stadium needs several $100 million worth of renovations. So that's kind of what happens when you don't have a long-term, and they're going to get them, and the Bengals are a unique animal, but I didn't mean that the way it sounded. But I mean, that's what happens when government forces something onto some property. Now you've got everything down there is tax abated or publicly supported, and whatever happens at the corner of Colerain and Springdale, I want it to be something that the market supports, that there's a demand for. And the mall was pretty successful for 30 years. And at the time, before the internet and all this online shopping, that's what people did, and they loved to come to an indoor collection of retailers. But that's not what the market
You're not
supports
saying
anymore.
build a Bengal stadium here on the mall site?
No, that place is, but that's what I mean. Everything south of 3rd Street, it's 20, 25 years later, and now they're going, gee, we need another couple $100 million to bring this back up. So it's great, and people go there, but keep in mind, it's an extremely expensive thing. So, and I would like to, when we end this, Matt, I want to have like a 2-minute break before we start the meeting. I think we're right up on our time. So.
You got number 5 before time's done?
No, I'm through with my list.
Okay, cool.
And if you have a number 5, I'm happy.
No, I thought you had said you had.
I read the other 5 just to prime the pump, and these were the 4 general areas I think that the comprehensive plan looked at, and I wanted to kind of get your take on that. So thank you very much. Very fruitful discussion. Took lots of notes. I think we can huddle and see what that looks like, and continue to let that develop as we.
Market-based solutions for the mall property.
So I think that right now I have 2 different times. I have 7 on my phone, which means, is there a motion to adjourn the special meeting, and then we will begin the other meeting, I guess, 2 minutes.
I motion that we adjourn the special meeting of the Board of Trustees work session at 7 p.m.
I second.
Any discussion?
No.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. We are adjourned at 7 p.m. We will begin at 7:01. We will begin at 7:03, slightly behind, but to allow for personal needs. All right, I will call us to order, a little bit tardy at 7:03. My apologies, the work session went late. My mic wasn't on, that's the first time. I will call us to order at 7:03. My apologies, we ran a little bit late in the work session on economic development. But we'll call the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, April 26th, 2022 to order. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here. Right, at this point, I'd like to introduce to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and they're going to come up to the main, I keep calling it an AMBO, the podium. Yeah. Abram and Lucy from Troop 640 at Pleasant Run Presbyterian Scout Troop, and we will do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we remain standing, to take a moment of silence for all those petitions in our heart and all those in our prayers for our township and our country and our world. Right. Thank you for attending today. And we have the first item we have in front of us is the approval of minutes. Those minutes have been provided for you in the meeting packet. Are there any motions at this time?
I motion that we approve the minutes of the April 12th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
There was I sent you one typo on that, Jeff?
Under one now.
Yeah, just one.
Okay. There was another one I found, but we'll let it ride. It's fine. It's a spacing problem.
We'll keep our powder dry on that one and let you know next time.
No other comments.
All right, any discussion, any other discussion?
None.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. All right, the approval of minutes passes 3-0. Item number 5, we have a number of presentations here.
I'm sorry, there were also.
Oh, I'm sorry,
special-
Oh, from
I
the,
also recommend
Yes.
the approval of the minutes from the special meeting of April 12th as well.
Jumping the gun a little bit, are there any motions to the, with regard to the special meeting?
I motion we approve the minutes for the special meeting on April 12th.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
None.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. That passes 3-0, the approval of the minutes from the special meeting. Now we have a number of presentations, starting with Chief Denny.
Oh,
This evening,
he's different looking.
Yeah.
Assistant Chief Ed Cordy.
Yeah, Assistant Chief Ed Cordy. I'm looking in the back, and I'm like, I can't exactly see. Introducing and swearing in newly hired Jesse Prince.
Good evening, Board, Mr. Mills, Mr. Baker. Before you tonight, I've got the honor of introducing and swearing in one of our newest officers, Jesse Prince. Jesse attended Madison High School. He served, he enlisted and served in the Navy for 4 years and was stationed in San Diego. He came home and decided that he wanted to be a cop, just like his dad. Went to Butler Tech Police Academy, where he completed his academy. He was selected as the Brian Dilley Award winner, which is now our 5th person that we've had at the police department for the Brian Dilley Award winning leadership. So, Jesse, who'd you bring with you tonight?
Today, I have my father, Ron Prince. This is my mother, Carrie Prince. This is my girlfriend, Tristan.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, stand here. You good, Mom? All right, raise your hand. I, Jesse Prince,
I, Jesse Prince,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio
and its bylaws,
and its bylaws,
I will abide by
I will abide by
the Colerain Police Department
the Colerain Police Department
mission and value statement,
mission and value statement,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
rules and regulations,
rules and regulations,
police department policy and procedure,
police department policy and procedure,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
in and for Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Officer Prince. Congratulations. Congratulations to your family as well, and thank you for coming out tonight.
And thank you for your naval service, and thank you for protecting the citizens of Colerain Township. Thank you.
And what a great day for your family.
All right, moving on to item B, a proclamation, wasted food stops with us.
Yes, sir. Trustee Wallet Board, we, through our partnership with Hamilton County Resource, which is the organization formerly known as the Hamilton County Solid Waste District, they reached out to share with us that their big focus this year in terms of waste diversion is on organic waste diversion, that's food waste. They have asked communities throughout Hamilton County to join them in declaring that wasted food stops with us. And so they have prepared a proclamation and requested your consideration of that proclamation. I can give that to you.
Does this go with composting all our organic waste?
There you go.
All right, are there any motions at this time?
Did you want to read that?
Yeah, let me go ahead and read the proclamation. Proclamation, Wasted Food Stops with Us Day, April 27th, 2022, Hamilton County, Ohio. Be it proclaimed by the Township Trustees of Colerain Township that whereas Wasted Food Stops with Us Day celebrates the value of food as a resource that should be enjoyed, consumed, shared, and donated to reduce food being landfilled, and whereas 40% of the food grown in the United States goes to waste, and whereas 1 in 6 Hamilton County residents struggle with food insecurity and the average family spends an extra $1,500 a year on food that is wasted, and whereas food waste contributes to the 18% of the United States methane emissions generated in landfills, and methane is a greenhouse gas up to 34 times more potent than carbon dioxide, whereas Colerain Township residents are encouraged to shop their pantry, make a grocery list, store food properly, and enjoy their leftovers, and whereas Colerain Township's Wasted Food Stops with Us Day coincides with the International Stop Food Waste Day, which is designated as April 27th of every year, and whereas Hamilton County R3 Source is hosting its own Wasted Food Stops with Us event on April 27th, 2022, be it proclaimed that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees does hereby recognize April 27th, 2022 as Wasted Food Stops with Us Day in Colerain Township.
I would motion that we approve the proclamation to get it to the floor.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion?
Those are interesting statistics that I've never seen before. That sounds like the high end of the statistic, but this is the job of a trustee is very educational, and I'm sure they've done their research on the statistics.
All right, Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. All right, item C.
Next item on the agenda is a proclamation recognizing August 26th through August 28th, 2022 as Germania Society of Cincinnati Weekend in Colerain Township. For those of you who don't know, we have a robust German cultural and social organizations in our community, and Germania is one of those. They will be holding their 50th Oktoberfest after a 2-year pandemic delay this year, August 26th through 28th. And they have asked that a proclamation be adopted recognizing this.
50 years? Wow.
Sure. Mr. Unger will read that.
Proclamation recognizing August 26th to August 28th, 2022 as Germania Society of Cincinnati Weekend in Colerain Township, Hamilton County, Ohio. Be it proclaimed by the Township Trustees of Colerain Township that whereas the community of Colerain Township represents a strong German ancestry and takes great pride in being part of the many organizations, clubs, and groups that promote German heritage, and whereas one such group, the Germania Society of Cincinnati, founded in 1964, held the Cincinnati area's original Oktoberfest at Harvest Home Park in 1971, and whereas the Germania Society later purchased the property at 3529 West Kemper Road in Colerain Township. The Germania Society of Cincinnati will proudly hold its 50th Oktoberfest after a 2-year pandemic delay. And whereas we recognize that the Germania Society continues to make significant contributions to Colerain Township and its residents, we are happy to congratulate them on their 50th Oktoberfest celebration. Be it proclaimed that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees does hereby recognize August 26th through August 28th, 2022 as Germania Society Weekend in Colerain Township. And I would motion that we approve the proclamation.
I will second.
All right, any discussion?
The Germania Society is a marvelous organization, and when I saw this on the agenda last week, I didn't know it was coming. My wife and I joined in July of 2020 when everything else was shut down and they were having some well-spaced outdoor events. And I thought, this is really a group of go-getters that are going to keep this going. And the whole COVID thing was so difficult for various fraternal organizations. And they have not just survived, but they have thrived. And it's a great place. And stop out. The monthly meetings are on the first Friday of the month out at the clubhouse, and it's a great group. And they do a lot of civic good as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a fantastic asset to the township, and thank you so much for everything that they do.
I agree. There's few things that people come across the border of East Side, West Side, and Germania is one of them. People actually come across the border to come to that, and we've enjoyed it for many years also.
They even across the Ohio River.
Yes, they will do that too.
It's amazing. People will come from
The
Kentucky.
membership out there is from all over.
Yes, it is.
It's the fact that I'm from Colerain Township is unique. I've made friends from Westchester and all sorts of places that come to the monthly meetings there. So
They have bands during the summer too. They have a whole list of bands that you can
great,
go enjoy
and they
too.
take very good care of the property as well. It's always very clean and tidied up, and the buildings are in great condition, and it's a marvelous place. And that's one of those, in our previous to this meeting, we had our work session. That's one of those unique assets in Colerain Township that this gives us a great chance to highlight this proclamation. And I have no other comments.
All right, Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. That passes 3-0, the proclamation for August 26th to August 28th. Citizens' address, do we have any? Thank you so much. All right, we have 2 citizens' addresses today. Mr. McVeigh. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Board. It's great to be with you again. Appreciate it. You know, it was a pleasure to see you guys in this work session tonight, and I think that's a great idea. I think it brings you all together. I'd encourage you to have more of them if you can. I think it helps yourself. I mean, as Dan points out all the time, you can't get together in between meetings, and so this is a good forum for that. And it also, I think, helps the staff, to see you together. So I'd encourage you to have more, in front of your meetings if you can. That'd be my advice, because I think it's a good use of your time. Tonight, I'd like to speak a little bit to your facilities master plan. It's a good piece of work. I saw it for the first time on the website. It's a lot of work as it's laid out, and it's a lot of spending to do all that work too. And as you start out on this journey, and I know it's a journey. I mean, the plan that you're approving tonight is kind of a roadmap of things you need to look at. So I take it in that light. But if I could give you some guidance on this thing, I'd like to do that. And kind of it's as follows. There are a lot of good ideas in there, and they represent a lot of input from a lot of people. And one of the things I would ask that you do is you consider making decisions on these items one at a time. I'd ask you that you identify as best you can what systemic improvements are going to result when you make these expenditures, and who will be the beneficiaries of those improvements. So, what's going to happen if you spend these dollars on these things, and what improvements are going to result from that, and how can you measure those things, okay? Because I think that's important for you to do that. The other thing I would ask you to do is to think about what money we won't spend in maintenance and other areas that will result because you've got a new facility in place. I mean, part of what you're dealing with here is you've got expenditures against your existing facilities, and if you keep doing that, it's a continuing expense. And as you put new facilities in place, you don't have that. So I'd ask that you think about that, and you ask questions about that. I mean, ask the staff, if we do this, who's going to get the improvement, and what kind of money will we save because we're not throwing money into an older business or older equipment. The third thing that I'd ask that you think about as you reach each decision along this journey, and it's going to be a journey, is that you identify as best you can what the tax implications are for all of your decisions. I mean, Dan pointed out, there was issues in Cincinnati, and Matt said the same thing about people who are concerned about their taxes. And when we make these decisions around the investment in infrastructure, you need to be able to identify for us, as part of your fiduciary responsibility, what are the tax implications? Are there none? Are there some? And I would ask those questions. Those are fair questions of the staff. Who's going to benefit? How will we measure the benefit? What kind of money are we saving because we're doing this? And what are the tax implications that we face as we make each of these decisions? That's important because there are several people in the community who think currently that they're overtaxed and underserved, so that's an issue. And what we have laid out for us is a significant investment in the facilities. And I'm sure some of it's warranted and needed. I'm not trying to second guess that. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to interact with the staff and ask those tough questions. And hopefully they won't be offended. I mean, that you're pushing back on them and saying, why is the time right to do this now? If we wait a little bit to do it later, or do we have to do it? And, oh, by the way, when we do this, how are things going to get better? How are we going to improve? What is it that we're doing with this that's going to attract more people into the township? So you're starting out on the journey, okay, and people have laid out a kind of a roadmap for you that's looked at things pretty comprehensively, it appears to me, around needs that exist. Now your job is to kind of sort through all that list and identify what are the best investments for the township, and making those decisions one at a time as you go along. So I wish you the best, and I'll talk with you more about it. You've got one on the agenda tonight. I mean, we got 2 fire stations that you're going to start to look at, developing a scope for. What's it going to take to do that? And then there's some preliminary numbers on there. What is it, $10 or $12 million, which is a lot of money, and you need to come to grips with what is the dollars and how in fact will we fund those, or are we going to have to go back and ask people to pay more taxes because that won't be well received. Thank you for listening. I think it's a good study that you have here, and you need to penetrate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we have Mr. Reininger. Is that right, Reininger? All right.
Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to hear my issue. By way of introduction, my name is Tom Reininger. I live at 510 Salzburg Lane in Cincinnati. I'm the farm manager of Walnut Creek Stables at 12080 Lick Road in Cincinnati. The issue I wish to bring before you tonight is one of two parts: Colerain Township's handling of a complaint and Colerain Township's existing procedures that address litter. I have my comments typed and I will give them to Mr. Mills when I'm done. The incident I wish to address was April 22nd, 2022 at 8:19 in the morning. Upon coming to work at 5:45 a.m. at Walnut Creek Stables on Friday, April 22nd, I noticed debris scattered along the road frontage that faces our horse pastures. After my wife and I finished feeding our 45 horses boarded at the stable, I walked the road to determine how much debris there was. The debris field was approximately 100 yards long. There was more rubble than I cared to pick up. I waited until 8 o'clock to place a call to Colerain Township offices for assistance. I explained to the person who answered the phone where I was located and what the problem was. And he explained to me that if the trash was in the roadway, he could help. If the trash, on the other hand, was over the white line, it was my responsibility. I told him the trash was thrown off a vehicle sometime between 9:30 p.m. Thursday night and 5:30 Friday morning, and I told him that I did not want to throw the trash back into the road so it would create a hazard for anyone coming down the street. His response to me was, and I quote, "You figure it out." At that point, I ended the call. I figured it out. It took me slightly over 2 hours, 2 different farm tractors to move drywall, cast iron plumbing fixtures, cement, basketball backboard, child slide, broken lawn chairs, and so forth. It filled a 6 cubic yard trash dumpster I keep at my place of business. The resolution I would propose: whoever answers the phone at your offices needs to be a resource for problem resolution from the Colerain Township's perspective. And if the second thing is if the township has a policy on not picking up roadside trash, it should be reviewed. There is no excuse for our township to be a random dumping ground for an individual who does not wish to use a very convenient and very well administered massive landfill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? So was this somebody that was hauling junk and it fell out of their truck, or what do you think it was?
The way it was scattered, because the chairs were over a hillside, the plumbing fixture was a little further down the road, the concrete pieces were a little further along. It could be done very easily from the back of a pickup truck with somebody driving slow and somebody else pitching the stuff out, because it went about 100 yards. So it was.
So what's the status right now? Where's the stuff at right now?
Oh, I picked it all up, raked all up, raked the cement up. I put the trash in the dumpster at my place of work, which was Walnut Creek Stables, and in the routine.
Thank you so much for cleaning it up. We have a police officer that does nothing but investigate environmental crimes. What direction are you going to go with this?
Well,
Yes.
thank you, and for cleaning that up.
I was just somewhat put off by.
Yeah,
the
there's no-
response.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
yeah,
Well,
that's
I
not
figured it
acceptable,
out, And I
no.
solved the problem, but I think that's something that,
There's a couple things going on. So I think,
fortunately, I have my
Are you
own
familiar
dumpster.
with this?
no, this is the first I've heard of it.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
thank you, and you shouldn't have been treated
Is
that way.
your callback number on there? Or could you come up here and just write it on this piece of paper?
Yeah, I've got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to talk to you more at some point. Thank you.
Right, so Mr. Mills, I guess kind of what we're going to do to that is you're going to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive in that and see what happened and
Yes.
let us know.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Good.
Are there any other comments to citizen address? All right, thank you, sir, for coming, and you will hear back from us. All right, we'll go to administrative reports, please.
Very good. I do not have a report for you. Mr. Cordy, do you have a report this evening? Okay, and Mr. Miller, do you have a report this evening?
Just talk for an hour, but somebody might have missed it.
Yeah, that's right.
Luckily, you're cute, so we can see you.
Luckily. All right, just again, just for the viewers who weren't part of the earlier work session on economic development, there's still lots going on in the development department. We're continuing to work with Rumpke on the industrial park and trying to find an end user for that 30-plus acres. They have started moving some dirt, and they're trying to get it prepped and just doing some site work. So that's exciting. I think we're just continuing to try to be creative on what could go there that has the synergy with them. That location is just not the best for anybody, but I think there is a opportunity for a great end user, and just got some ideas that we're chasing with that, and I think have a great opportunity. One of the things that we have been missing in Colerain for some time, and maybe forever, is a hotel. And so with the opportunities that do present to us in the certain locations, I think we have an opportunity to talk. I'm going to be meeting with a hotelier who is regional here locally, and he has expressed some interest in the past, and I think we just need to know from the industry, what do you need in a locality to draw your interest enough to be able to build a hotel. So I think that's going to give us some direction and ways that we can help develop Colerain. Good news on the Colerain, on Kroger down south at 6601 Colerain. We're currently working on a proposal that would repurpose that building. And so we're making some good progress, and we're hopeful that is going to find a successful end in the near future. But I think that is looking very promising. And then something that's near to Mr. Wallert's heart is we're partnering with Northwest Local Schools on a Safe Routes to Schools project, and just building some more sidewalks to make it safer for students that don't have that public transportation option. And we're going to build some sidewalks for them, and they are providing us with some key documents on where those high traffic areas are and how we can partner with them on some sidewalks. So I think that probably hits all the development issues right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller, so the Safe Routes to School we used pretty extensively when I was at North College Hill, and there's grant money involved with that as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
And let me know if you encounter, Ms. Long and I worked on that when we were at North College Hill and got a lot of money for help on that. So that's fantastic. With regard to the Kroger, I don't know, Mr. Mills, I had given you some information, and it just didn't seem to fit about somebody that was interested in the circus thing. I don't know if that will fit with what's currently being investigated with the Kroger.
Likely not.
Okay. Because
Likely not. Yeah.
okay, because I know that's maybe going to be an experiential thing as well.
Yeah,
So.
for sure.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
That concludes our administrative reports this evening.
Boy, we're good.
All right, moving on to trustee reports.
I can go ahead and go first. The comments by Mr. Renninger from the stables, that's certainly something that we will look into. Always call our administration. If you're not able to get a hold of them, or it's a weekend or something, I answer 513-404-3057 every day of the week. I don't take my phone into church on Sundays, but other than that, I take calls 7 days a week. We have great communication with Jeff, and if something's important or an emergency or imminent, I communicate it to him immediately. That sounds like a bad situation that we need to get resolved. We had a work session just before this meeting, and we just had some comments about our facility plan. One of the unique things about Colerain Township, and I had mentioned this at the end of our work session with what's going on in Cincinnati, is here in Colerain Township, we have paid off all of our general obligation bonds, and we don't have long-term debt. And I don't know another municipality or government entity that has worked their way into that situation. And from where I sit here, I want to stay that way. As we move forward, we're going to find ways to do things, at least in my world, without taking on more bonds, because that's just, you're paying a bond salesman, you're paying interest. That last payment we made December 1st, I think $18,000 of that was interest. And with $18,000, we could replace 180 street signs. That's 95% of our population here never has any interaction with the township, but except when the snow's being pushed off their street, or when they pull in their street and the stop sign's worn out, or the street signs tilting sideways. So to me, those little things mean a lot in a township, and by avoiding interest payments and bond commissions, we can really start to get a hold on fixing those things. Our commenter during the public presentation, the facility plan is just that. We've got an inventory of what we have and what we're going to do. We will fund it as funds become available and as the board's priorities rise to the top of what are the most important things to us right now. And how will these reduce expenses? We heard a comment during the work session, and I'm not sure I'm 100% in agreement with it, but when the school district built the 3 new schools, you know, I have to ask, well, how did Struble, Taylor, and Pleasant Run, how are the school district's operating expenses reduced now that they have those new buildings? If we build some new fire stations, what will that do to our operating expenses? And his other comment about don't be afraid to offend the staff, frankly, I don't think that staff could be any more offended with me than they are any given day. And as I've always joked, you know, when you work here, and I love all our employees, you are taking a job with an elected board, assistant chief, development director, assistant administrator, and even law director, you know, and we're not afraid to talk to our administration and tell them what we think, and that's the beauty of the system of government here. We have open dialogue, and I just really enjoy it. And other than that, I think things are going quite well. I've gone out and looked at a couple of our nuisance properties, and they are viable, and they're on the resolution later on this evening. And I think our code enforcement's doing a great job, and I think the township's a cleaner, better place than it was years ago, and we continue to move in that direction. We do have a few scouts here from a local scout troop tonight. I know one of the things you have to do to reach the next level in scouting is attend a public meeting, and I hope you folks are enjoying what you're seeing here. And I know you mentioned you needed to talk to one of the elected officials after the meeting, and you know, come on up, and one of us will talk to you after the meeting. So we'll yield the balance of my time, Mr. President.
All right, you want to go?
Sure. I'm a newly elected. This is almost the end of my first quarter, and I have been most impressed with the staff and personnel here at Colerain. They've coached me, they've guided me, and have been super friendly. And you see the work that goes on tonight between David and everything that goes into these agendas and the studies that they have to do. I just want to let the people of Colerain Township, I think their tax dollars are being well spent. I do believe in giving a compliment when a compliment's due. I think we have a superior staff at Colerain. In the last 3 months, they've listened to all our agendas, and in 3 months, we've hired 3 litter laborers. We've got David, economic director, we've got the PR people, all the things that were important to our agendas. We now got the rental registration. There's so many things in the first quarter, the first 3 months of this year that have been going on, that you guys are doing such diligent work, and it makes our jobs easier because you do so much research and so much work and inform us. I just want to say thank you to all of you. It's been a great first quarter.
All right. I echo all those sentiments. Thank you so much. Just a couple things. May 3rd, please go out and vote. Please vote, vote, vote. Actually, you can vote now. You could go down to Norwood, check out the hours, and I know that during the weekends they're open. Ohio makes it easy. When I lived in Kentucky years ago, you needed like a doctor's note to get an absentee ballot. Here in Ohio, you just ask for one and they get you one. You know, it's as a government teacher, I always tell my students, I don't care what you get on your AP test. I would just want you to grow up and become a voter. And even if you don't have a ride to the polls, I'll drive you there myself, even if you're going to vote against me. Shows poor judgment on your part, but I'll still drive you. That's important. School's out soon, so please watch. One thing that we noticed last year in certain neighborhoods, there seemed to be, I don't know if the kids were inside during COVID and were out, but it seems to be more kids, and that's great. I want to see more kids out. Just a reminder, for May 22nd is the Cleanup Northbrook at the Plaza, and May 16th is the Greater Northbrook meeting at Southland Baptist at 7. The work session, you will notice that since I was elected, we've had more and more I think work sessions are great. I love to talk. It probably drives everybody else nuts, but my belief is that we get the best result by talking things through. And Mr. McVeigh had mentioned, don't be afraid to offend the staff, and Mr. Unger said, we really don't offend. It's like, I always liken it to buying an item at Walmart and trying to put it together. You get that little piece of direction that's that big in 17 languages. I never know what to do, but if I read it out loud, it becomes a little easier for me to handle. And I think that that's what these discussions are about. That's what the being in the policy is all about, and being part of policy. The facility plan, I look at it and I'm scared of the costs. The one thing that I always keep in mind is that even if I plant a tree, I've now committed to that tree for watering it for 30 years. That it's just not the upfront costs, it's the footprint that it leaves. And, and I think that we have a moral obligation to leave the township in a better position than we found it, and to work to be financially responsible. And I think that that's important. And that we should make decisions based upon a very long kind of vision, not for next year or the year after, but for 30 years down the road. A couple of things that this came up, and Mr. Mills gave me the stats today. We had a bad first experience with the first property registration company. The second, I'm like, well, what's going to happen now? So we have a list that they're working through that the township has compiled of 400 commercial properties. We have 30 foreclosures already registered with ProChamps that have brought us over $10,500 in registration fees. Sergeant Penley sent a list of other commercial properties on Colerain to look at. We have investigated 389 properties, entered 389, inspected 149 of them, and found that about 20% are vacant. If that's the case, we'll end up sending 80 plus to ProChamps. So this is producing it's not so much the revenue. I think for me is the having people attach the responsibility of taking care of the items, and that's big. And the last thing is the Bengals select 31st on Thursday evening. So that's it for me. New business, public safety.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wallach, the first item of new business comes from our police department. It will be presented by Assistant Chief Ed Cordy.
And he's got his new badge.
Yes, ma'am.
Fancy. Good evening again.
Good evening.
I have before you the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. This resolution allows for the removal of uncontrolled vegetation and refuge at the following properties: 8755 Colerain Avenue, parcel 510-0093-018500, 9755 Colerain, 510-0103-008900, 10164 Colerain Avenue, 510-0104-00, 11929 Hamilton Avenue, 510-0011-047900, 9871 Merino Drive, 510-0041-003500, 10147 Windswept Lane, 510-0042-005600. And lastly, a address range of 3628 to 3650 Springdale Road with parcel ID 510-0103-0262 0. At this point, we recommend adoption of the resolution.
Are there any motions at this time?
I motion we adopt the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement to those 7 properties that Assistant Chief Cordy just listed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of
yeah.
them.
Seconds?
Second?
All right, any discussion?
Done.
Thank you for all that worked on putting this list together and holding property owners accountable. And you're going to keep seeing these until we get this thing under control. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, so that passes 3-0. Resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement for the properties listed. Thank you, sir. Next, public services.
Outstanding work, Chief Cordy. Next, we have a resolution for your consideration. It's a resolution for the disposal of by sale of equipment and vehicles which are obsolete, unfit, or unneeded for public use. What we're talking about is disposing of 2 mowers. They are beyond their useful life and have been replaced with new mowers in 2012. It's a 2011 Skag and a 2011 Exmark. And these will be disposed of on the GovDeals auction website. Recommendation is to approve.
Any motions on this?
I motion that we approve the resolution for disposal by sale of equipment and vehicles which are obsolete, unfit, or not needed for public use, the 2 mowers as described.
I second.
Discussion?
None.
So, Mr. Mills, on the GovDeals site, anybody can register if people are so inclined to bid on these items or to just see what they're sold for. If you want to follow up on them, I've been there every once in a while to look at things, and they've got everything from you can bid on fire engines. I'm going to get one of these days. I need a big fire engine running down Colerain Avenue, but it's a fantastic site, and it's an opportunity to just kind of check up on what we're doing.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
None.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. That passes 3-0 to put those items on an auction because they're unfit, unneeded for public use. All right, administration.
Yes, sir. The next 3 items are financial related and will be presented by our finance director, Mr. Jeff McElravy.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So the first of the 3 items that we have for you this evening is an increase in appropriations for 2 funds. These are new funds that were created in 2021, the first being Fund 2402, which is the Community Development Block Grant Sidewalk Maintenance Fund. And the second fund is 2905, which is the TIF that was created as a result of the Northridge project. And the reason that these appropriations are necessary is because the county auditor charges the township for the collection and distribution of property tax and payments in lieu of tax. And those expenses appeared as part of the first half tax settlement. And we need to have appropriations in place in order to be able to cover those expenses. So the recommendation is for an increase in appropriations in Fund 2402 to $1,700 and Fund 2905 to $20, and that should cover the property tax expenses for the balance of the year. The staff recommendation is adoption of the resolution.
Any motions at this time?
I motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the adoption of amended appropriations for the year of 2022 as described by our finance director.
I'll second.
Discussion.
It's a lot of money, 157,587 down to 11,005. Yeah.
It's about 1.3 of what we would 1.3% of what we collect.
Yeah.
It's a real number.
Yeah, wow. It's when you see it.
No comments from me.
All right, Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0, and that amends the appropriations for year 2022. Mr. McElravy?
Yes. So the next item on the agenda is a resolution adopting the standard allowance for expenditure from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. So these next two items have to do with the American Rescue Plan and the grant that we have received in part and will receive. We've received half of it in 2021. We'll receive the other half in 2022 for just shy of $7.5 million in funding. The first resolution here adopts what the U.S. Treasury calls a standard allowance. It's sort of similar to a standard deduction that you would have like with your personal income tax, where instead of going through and itemizing all of the areas where we have potentially lost revenue or we will lose revenue in the future in order to be eligible for these funds, what we just do is take the standard $10 million deduction, which is in excess of the grant amount. So this greatly simplifies our reporting and compliance work and causes no fiscal harm to the township. So this is standard language that comes from Treasury that was adapted by our legal counsel, and it preserves maximum flexibility in terms of the decisions that this board is going to need to make down the road in terms of how these funds are invested. And the staff recommendation is adoption of the resolution.
Are there any motions at this time?
I motion we adopt the resolution adopting standard allowance for expenditure from American Rescue Plan Act funds.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I think it'll be on the next resolution. I don't have any for this one.
No.
So I do have a couple points to make. So for me, this 7 million plus, I believed was it could make a generational change in the township. And to quote the oft-quoted Al Gore, I want to put that $7 million in a lockbox kind of deal. So even though we're moving it to use the standard kind of accounting terms here, I don't want, at least my view is I don't want that $7 million to be chipped away at. So I'm going to be kind of hawkish on that because I think there's sometimes a tendency to let those funds kind of poof. And I think it can make generational changes in the township. And this makes it easy accounting. I get that, and I think that that's important. But at the same time, I guess everybody else is too young for the lockbox reference. I thought that would work, but no.
I don't remember it.
Okay, thanks.
We use lockboxes on houses, so I don't.
Right. Well, the debates of 2000, we hit a.
Matt, I know.
Yeah.
I followed this stuff for a while.
Yep. So that's my point is that I don't want to, even though we're moving it to this general fund, I don't want to spend it unless it's something transformational.
I think in the next resolution, it gives a date that
Could
we
be.
need to spend it by, so that's why I'm saving my discussion for that next resolution. No other comments from me.
All right.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. It passes 3-0 and makes the expenditure the authorized additional standard expenditure from American Rescue Act funds. All right, next item.
Thank you, Board. So the next item, and perhaps as a precursor to introducing this, it would be good to just note that as part of the permanent appropriations process, this board did not appropriate any funds through the American Rescue Plan Fund. So at this point, there have been no decisions made administratively or legislatively in terms of how those funds are to be used. The next resolution is, again, standard language that came from Treasury and adapted by our legal counsel. It's very similar to the prior resolution, and it is necessary to be adopted annually anytime federal funds are to be used. Again, we haven't appropriated funds. This isn't making any sort of budgetary decision about how the funds are to be invested. This just allows us to be able to check the boxes that are necessary to be checked in order for us to be able to file with the Department of Treasury to show that we are in compliance with their requirements, which is due on Saturday. So the staff recommendation is the adoption of the resolution that will authorize additional expenditure, which is not an appropriation, from the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Are there any motions at this time?
I motion we consider the resolution or pass the resolution authorizing additional expenditure from American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Second.
All right, discussion.
Yes, in the whereas section of that use of funds subject to paragraph 2, when you get to the end of that, it mentions that to cover cost incurred by the Metropolitan City Non-Entitlement Unit of Local Government or County by December 31st, 2024, which I interpret that as this money will need to have it spent or committed by December 31st, 2024, which
It will need
is,
to be obligated by that date.
yes, and I'm confident that we do that. The amount is actually 7 million for, it's on here, $7,496,967. I disagree with the way the federal government has done this. I don't know where that money's coming from, but Matt talks about making a generational change and having an impact well into the future. And I would say for those folks that are going to be living here in 2030 and 2040 and beyond, and we've talked about our facility study, and one of the items that rises to the top to me is the replacement of those 2 fire stations. And, you know, pending discussion with the other board members, this would pretty much cover that. And that would be a huge generational change. And for you young scouts and everybody else, I'm liable to be under the dirt by then. But there would be 2 paid-for firehouses, and we would be able to maintain our excellent fire department with upgraded facilities or new facilities, and that would be huge. And I mentioned earlier in my trustee comments that we're very unique. We don't have long-term general obligation bonds here. This is truly a game changer, and like I said, I disagree with what the federal government has done. They have buried our nation for generations in debt. But the fact of the matter is, all the collection of Jeffs, Jeff Baker, Jeff McElreavy, Jeff Mills, and what other Jeffs we have, they've gone out, and we have a lot of Jeffs. They have gone out and worked hard and applied for these funds and managed to get them heading this way, contingent on passage of this resolution, and that would be huge. So it would just, 15, 20 years from now, we'll have something to show for the action we're taking this evening. So I have no other comments.
So it has to be used out of the lockbox in a year and a half.
Well, 2 years, December 31st of 2024.
Right, a year,
So,
a little less.
We're obligated.
Yes.
We're obligated.
So it's going to have to come out of there, Matt.
Right.
and I think once we get back the item down the agenda here with the looking into somebody to develop a scope of what those firehouses might be, then we'll have a better answer if this is going to work for that. But that's certainly the direction I'm heading with it. It would just relieve future generations of Colerain Township property owners of the burden of paying for those, along with all the interest and all the other expenses that come with bonding out money. There it is. I'm looking at it right on the screen. So nice work getting that rounded up.
Thank you.
I have no other comments.
I'm good.
All right, Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0, authorizing additional expenditures from the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you for your work on that, Mr. McElravy.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mills?
Next item on the agenda is a motion to approve the facility master plan. We have in the past, in past meetings, received a presentation from our consultant who evaluated all of our facilities in the township and made recommendations, just as Mr. McVeigh suggested, a roadmap for future investments, looking out decades, really, and understanding what our priorities are, what our short-term needs are, and what our longer-term needs are. So that presentation occurred at April 12th Board of Trustees meeting, and attached in the agenda packet is a full copy of the master plan, which outlines key short-term, long-term improvements to our existing facilities and parks. The plan outlines strategies for more efficiently and effectively addressing space needs for use over the next 20 to 30 years. Elements of this plan will be brought forward for action in future trustee meetings and in budgets. The recommendation is to adopt the motion to approve the facility master plan.
I'll motion to to approve the facility master plan as provided.
I'll second.
All right, discussion.
Thank you to everyone who has worked on that, and like we said, it's just a roadmap. It gives us a plan. We may decide to fund some of it. This board or a future board might decide to change part of it, but we have a plan. And so thank you to everyone who worked on it.
And as Mr. McVeigh would say, if any of the citizens of Colerain Township want to look at our firehouses and look at the shape that they're in, feel free to take a tour. And you'd say, we need some more new firehouses. I think our firefighters deserve it.
Yeah, and I thank you to all the hard work done on the facility master plan. I'd like to put a copy of that in the lockbox as well. Okay. For future generations. And it is, there are some items in there that I'm kind of like, but again, it just gives us an inventory. I think Mr. Mills uses the term an inventory of what we have, what it's like, but also, and the one thing that I kind of stressed last time, it gives us an idea of what future maintenance will be. Because I think that in government, we get in the tendency of deferring maintenance, and then all of a sudden, we need a new building. In this case, we kind of have a list of what maintenance needs to be done, and we know, Mr. Mills doesn't get a call at 2 a.m. saying the sprinklers are going off, the building's ruined, or something like that. I mean, we have an idea where things are going. So I think that's significant as well. Mr. Becker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. Passes 3-0 to approve the facility master plan. Mr. Mills, item E.
Thank you, Board. The Board of Trustees recently passed a facility master plan. And in that facility master plan, it identifies Station 26 and Station 102 as in critical need of upgrading. The first step in that process is a release of a scope of services for architectural services for Fire Station 26 and 102. The facility master plan highlighted the need for this replacement, and in evaluating the current supply chain and in light of rising inflation, constructing both stations at the same time will provide the township with the ability to maximize economies of scale and result in long-term cost savings. The motion would be the first step in a series of motions towards the construction of 2 new fire stations. Future trustee action on this topic will include the creation of a capital project fund, the selection of a design firm, an RFP for a construction manager at risk, selection of the new construction company, potentially site acquisition. It is not anticipated that construction would commence until 2023, and that construction would hopefully be completed in 2024. Staff has analyzed several methods of funding these 2 situations, including the use of cash, debt, and internal notes. Staff seeks direction from the board as to the preferred financing structure. If desired, staff will facilitate a work session on this topic. And I think, given that this is a very broad topic and has lots of intricacies, I think that perhaps a work session on funding this might make a lot of sense so that we have clear direction from the board. Does that sound good?
It's redundant, but good. I've staked out my position.
Yes. Yeah, but it might
We
make
discussed that last week also, but yeah, we never get a chance to talk together about it. Another work session would be good.
Yep.
And redundant.
Very good. So the recommendation is to adopt a motion authorizing the scope of services released for architectural services for Fire Station 26 and 102.
I motion that we authorize a scope of services release for architectural services for Fire Station 26 and Station 102.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
And after that scope of services is determined, then the board will have a say in what exactly this entails. And at that point, I am looking for something functional. I'm not looking for a hotel. I'm looking for a very functional fire station that incorporates latest fire technology and ability to get in and out, and ability to do the very basic functions of a fire department and an EMS department, and not something that you might see in other communities where I think they've gone kind of overboard. There's a nice looking fire station up 27 in Ross Township that's within 5 years old, and but that discussion's for another day. As I said earlier, it's you sit up here as a trustee and you do stuff like sell lawnmowers and listen to complaints about the various things in the township. It's not very often that you get to sit here and make decisions that'll affect this community like these fire stations. That's something that'll affect this community, 20, 30 years from now. And boy, what a nice spot the three of us are in, that we have a chance to make just such a huge long-term impact on the community.
Before and afters will be significant when you talk about long-term impact.
Yep.
Yeah, and the most important thing to me is that the legacy is the new buildings. It's not a big pile of debt for you young folks to pay off, because that's not what my purpose is here. So those are my comments with respect to this motion.
So this scope of services would be in concurrent construction, is what we're talking about.
Right.
Is there any thought given to look at consecutive versus concurrent and using a comparison to those?
And I would agree with that, Matt. I did mention that to Jeff last week, so go on with that line of thought.
I mean, I would to look at both options. I get it with interest rates climbing and inflation climbing. I don't know that the macro conditions of the economy are going to be that way. I mean, the next step typically is higher unemployment and things like that. If we go that route, then those costs then decrease. I guess what would be the negative to releasing it to scope of services in two ways?
We could do that. It would be more, we could do that if you'd like. I think that I can't think of too many instances where things have gotten cheaper over time. And that would include.
Well, lumber's gotten cheaper from 2 months ago. It's already dry. So, I mean.
But what I'm saying is interest rates are rising, inflation is going up, labor costs are going up, cost of capital is going up. It's so that my suggestion would be that we could absolutely put that out and get it back. I would anticipate that it will be more expensive to build consecutive firehouses than concurrent.
So what is, I guess my question is to you, to put this package together, what is the additional kind of resource commitment to putting together two sets of requests as opposed to one?
We can absolutely do that.
Okay. And we had talked, I know individually you and I had talked about internal notes. Do we have any more kind of development on that?
That's what so in this work session, I think it would make a lot of sense to go in depth into what the three options are: the cash only option, the more conventional debt option, and then we've explored this idea of something called manuscript debt or internal notes. And I'd like to be able to talk about that in a little bit more detail, just so that everyone understands all the options that we've explored, and we can get your feedback. I know I hear you.
Dan likes to.
Loud and clear.
That goes back to my thing with the Germania Society. Dan likes to write checks for stuff and be done with it.
Sure.
Than
Yeah.
not involve a bunch of people that sell bonds and interest and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how I can be more clear about that.
Yes, it is very clear. But the will of the board, I just want to make sure that I understand the board's opinion on that, and I think that and have residents understand what all of the options are that are available. So,
And I think that I want to take a closer look at internal notes because as opposed to, traditional debt and bond, you need bond councils and stuff like that. Internal notes, in essence, we use our reserves to pay for it, and then we pay it back ourselves. And that keeps that $7.4 million in the lockbox.
Well, and Matt, and that does, when we paid off that last general obligation bond last year, I want to say it was $980,000. Where is that money in the budget at this year, since we don't have that obligation? So I'm fine looking into that too. I'm just not interested in going into external debt and bond counsel and
neither am
interest
I.
and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And maybe Kathy's on the same page. And, the discussion that I had with you last week about, hey, can we do these singular, one after another, so that you don't have the logistical situation of trying to build two firehouses at once? How do we maintain, fire service to the community when one of the stations is, half torn down and we're clearing a lot next door and there's problems getting in and out? And I often point out that we can't talk outside of meetings. It sounds like you had something similar to that conversation of doing them one after another.
Yeah.
So put another page on the request for services. What would it cost to do them together, and what would it cost to do them separately?
yes, sir. Will do.
All right, thank you.
Yep, my pleasure.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, so that passes 3-0. Motion authorizing the scope of services released for architectural service for Fire Station 26 and Station 102.
Very good. Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute or to enter into an agreement for gas aggregation at a rate below the current Duke Energy Ohio gas cost recovery rate at the time of execution for a period not to exceed 24 months. So we've talked about this in the past. Our existing contract for gas aggregation is set to expire in May of 2022. The trustees have previously authorized the administrator to enter into an agreement at a rate not to exceed 56 cents per CCF of gas for a period of 24 months, but the market had other plans. The market has been extraordinarily volatile, and gas rates did not fall below that 56 cents per CCF. So as we have talked to our peers in other townships about how they are going about it, as we've talked to our energy consultants, they have shared with us that the approach that Green, Delhi, Sims are going to take is to give the administrator the authorization to execute a contract should the price suddenly drop to a place where it locks in. Because with all the market volatility, the price changes very quickly. And so if we have to wait for 2 weeks and come back to you guys, that price is going to be gone. And so the request is to adopt this motion.
I'll motion to authorize the Township Administrator to enter into an agreement for gas aggregation at a rate below the current Duke Energy Ohio gas cost recovery rate at the time of execution for a period not to exceed 24 months.
I second.
Discussion, please.
So we would allow you to enter into a 24-month contract, like if it was this October and all of a sudden, for some reason, there was a change in the price. So how long are we giving you that authority for, to do that?
Until the contract is executed.
So it sounds permanent, that we're permanently giving you that authority.
I think that it would end as soon as the contract was executed.
What if it's 2 years from now? So we're just turning this over to you to shop it?
Yeah, I don't anticipate that we will go without a contract for 2 years. So, so one option that we've discussed is just sitting it out, letting aggregation fall off.
Right.
And then reapproaching the market in September. That's still that's still something that could happen. But if the price gets competitive before September, it would be great to be able to trigger, to be able to execute that contract immediately.
No question, and I'm fine turning that over to you, but this sounds like until we get another contract, whether it's today, tomorrow, 6 months from now, or, with the current federal policy on energy, I see prices, as you do, going the wrong direction. Sure. And so we're just permanently handing this off to you until
the contract's executed.
Right.
Yes.
And if we don't execute a contract in the next 12 months, would we revisit this, or?
Sure. Yeah, you could revisit it at any time.
We could revisit it did we just put a different sign in there? I mean, it's 56, we're looking for 56.
Right, but
If
I mean,
that's going to be
we're giving them
inconsequential.
authority
right.
to just
Right, that's what, when we revisit. that's
carry
probably
this
what we're
on
gonna have to
indefinitely.
revisit.
We could revisit it in 2 weeks if we wanted to.
Yeah.
You could take that away.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, let's if he doesn't, which don't, if it's a bad price, but if you don't come up with something by November 1st, let's revisit this. And then maybe take a look at your authority to do this, not questioning your authority, but just.
We're just trying to
Right.
position ourselves to take advantage of.
And
different
federal
market.
energy policy is just, it's not just natural gas for residents and businesses, it's just, completely screwed with the energy markets and sent things in the wrong direction and enabled bad actors in the world stage. And the whole discussion of federal energy policy is a whole nother thing for me, but
I'm just trying to get a good price for Colerain residents.
I know you are. And the reason the prices aren't is factors that are way, way out of our control.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, no more discussion from me.
All right, any other? Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, so that gives Mr. Mills the authority to negotiate, enter an agreement for gas aggregation rate below the current Duke Energy Ohio gas rate. Modifying org chart, G, sorry.
Yes, sir. The next item is a resolution that would modify our organizational chart and roster. We reviewed applicants for the seasonal fire hydrant maintenance worker role, and based on these reviews, we've identified a fourth part-time employee that would be an excellent candidate for employment. However, the org chart currently sits at 3 part-time seasonal fire hydrant maintenance workers. So we suggest modifying that org chart to add this additional fire hydrant maintenance worker. It would fall within existing appropriations, so no additional money would need to be appropriated, and the goal is to adopt the resolution.
To get it to the floor, I motion that we adopt the organizational chart modification as described.
I'll second. It's not costing us any.
Just to be clear, how long does the season last?
Chief Walls? Till October.
So we're authorizing a position till the end of October, weather dependent?
You're adding a fourth hydrant maintenance worker onto the organizational chart.
But he might stay here by season, you mean end of October is what I heard?
Yes, so that would
So
end.
by December, this person is not here at that time?
The person filling that role on the org chart would not be
Okay.
on our payroll, right?
Right, okay.
Yep.
That's fine. I just wanted
Yes, sir.
to know when the end of the season was.
So in those seasonal positions, what happens to that space on the organizational chart? Does it just remain vacant at that point?
Yep, that's right. It's similar to our seasonal maintenance workers that
Right.
cut grass in our parks, and yeah.
No, that's fine. I get it.
Very good.
But next year, so what we've done is permanently authorize 4 people to do that next year also?
Yeah, so usually what we do is at the end, well, when we're
This isn't
develop-
just an ad for 22, this is an ad.
to the organizational chart. And
Permanent ad.
But we review our organizational chart every year with the strategic planning process, and so and our budget process. So so the way that we organize our work is we figure out what it is that you guys want us to accomplish, what resources we have to accomplish that, what people we need in place on the org chart to do that with, and then we come to you in December usually and say, hey, this is the org chart that we proposed for next year that gets us to the goals that you have given us. So we could take it off if
Right.
it doesn't align with.
So, but this doesn't, what this says is it's permanent and it's not just for 2022.
It's an amendment to the org chart, yep. For a part-time fire hydrant maintenance worker.
That I will support this, but I want to review it December 1st. And I mean, I want you to come to us with that, and I will make a note. And I asked Mr. Baker to note that in the minutes, that I want to review this at the end of the year, because I don't want to just.
Absolutely.
Fire hydrant maintenance is critical. Do we own those, or are they owned by Cincinnati Waterworks? Are we talking about painting them or opening them and testing them, or?
They open them and test them, they weed eat around them.
Right,
So that they
which
don't-
is a warm weather thing.
Yep, they paint them and,
Right, yeah, I just want to watch that we're just not, because we added some positions last time, and all of a sudden, next year, we've got another 5 positions to fill, and I would rather have that come back to the board, so.
Well, with new developments coming in, we're going to have more fire hydrants also.
Right, but I mean, we just keep adding positions, which are needed. You got to maintain the fire hydrants, but next year, we'll have another 4 or 5 people on the org chart, and the group of people that works here just continues to grow.
yeah, and I think the hourly wage for this role is $11.33, and it's a maximum of 30 hours per week
And does
for
it?
that season.
Okay, yes, I will support this, just to bring it back December, our first December, at our December meeting
You bet.
for review.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, so that authorizes a resolution modifying the org chart and roster. Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir. The final item of new business this evening is a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute a contract agreement with One Stop Pest Control. This year, we have a management analyst intern who helps with projects. This moment in time, Mr. Austin Rittinger is our management analyst intern, and one of his projects was to oversee the pest control contract, and I'd like to invite Mr. Rittinger up to present this item.
Welcome, Mr. Rittinger.
Hate to call you out right now, but it's Rittinger.
Rittinger.
My boss, so I can't.
Hey, man, go for it, buddy. Go for it.
Well, I'm his boss, and he made me make a mistake, so.
Turn on your mic, please. There's a little red button there.
All right, is it on now? Okay. So, pursuant to strategic goal number 4, managing the township's finances responsibly, I recommend adoption of the notion to enter a contract with One Stop Pest Control. Over the years, we do renegotiations on our contract, seeing if there's spots where we can save more money. After reevaluating our current contract and looking at competitors, I found One Stop to be the most affordable. It would be dropping our current rate at $6,528 annually to $6,050. And not only is it the cheaper option, they received glowing reviews from both the Colerain Clippard YMCA and DMG Rentals.
Well, I'm going to motion to authorize the township administrator to execute an agreement with One Stop Pest Control.
I'll second it, and thank you for saving the township $500.
See, Mr. Mills, how come you don't bring that to us?
What's that?
He saved $500. We need 2 new fire stations, $10 million.
No comments from me.
Thank you so much, and what a professional. He checked on references. I'm like, wow.
I know, good.
Yeah.
Did his
Thank you,
job.
Board.
I think you're administrator material.
Yep. All right, let's, well, we got to vote yet. You haven't passed yet. We've been known to be nice to you and then vote against it for no reason whatsoever. Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, and thank you so much for appearing this evening.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Old business, I have an item.
All right, old business, I understand Mr. Unger has.
Well, I'm just looking at old business. This business is about 4 minutes old. That resolution we just passed for the additional fire hydrant worker, it looks like we used the boilerplate from 2 weeks ago. So when we go to sign that, we'll have to change the date on it from April 12th to current. So if somebody sees that in the agenda, is that okay to just do that? We're just using this form?
That sounds great.
Okay, so we will, you see what I'm talking about, Matt? It says April
Yeah.
12th there? Okay. I just wanted to point that out that I noticed that, so.
All right, thank you, sir.
For those watching, we have the agenda on a screen here in front of us, and it's a lot of quick reading, so, thank you.
All right, we have in front of us 4 consent items.
Yes, sir. First is a new hire. This is a seasonal fire hydrant maintenance worker in the Department of Fire and EMS. The position was posted. We received applications and conducted interviews. Conditional offer of employment was extended to Mr. Orlando Berry. The wage for this job is $11.33 per hour for no more than 30 hours per week. Contingent upon your approval, he'd eligible to begin work May 1st, 2022. Next item is a new hire in the police department. It is a police officer. This position was posted and we conducted interviews. Conditional offers of employment was extended to Mr. Brett Volrath. The wage for this job is $25.48 per hour for 40 hours per week. Contingent upon the board's approval, he would be eligible to begin work April 27th, 2022. Next item is a new hire in the police department. It's a police officer. If a conditional offer of employment was extended to Cody Lee. The wage for this job is $25.48 per hour for 40 hours per week. Contingent upon your approval, he'd be eligible to begin work April 27th, 2022. And finally, we have a new hire. It's a maintenance worker in the Public Services Department. Conditional offer of employment was extended to Mr. Dan Anick. The wage for this job is $19 per hour for 40 hours per week. Contingent upon your approval, he'd be eligible to begin work April 27th, 2021. Per the collective bargaining agreement, Mr. Anick's hourly wage would be increased to $21 per hour once a CDL-A license is obtained. The recommendation is to adopt all of the consent items.
I motion that we approve the consent items as presented.
I'll second.
Mr. Mills, on the public service maintenance worker,
Sir.
that's a requirement with, to have the CDLA, right?
Yes, within a year.
Within a year, okay, so,
And that's within the probationary period, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at what the, is that listed here in the,
It's in the collective bargaining agreement.
okay, okay. No other questions or comments?
None.
Right, Mr. Baker, why don't we call the question on that?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, that passes 3-0, and those are consent items. The new hires, items A, B, C, and D, as indicated by Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Board. We've accomplished a lot tonight.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Baker, do you have a fiscal office report for us?
No report tonight, Board. Thank you.
Mr. Mills?
Sir?
A lot's riding on this. Is there a need for an executive session?
I do not believe there is a need.
Oh, Mr. Mills.
All right, we're gonna get him.
Unless do you think there's a need?
I don't. Do you?
I don't know. We never talk.
I know, but I'm asking you, do you think we need one?
I don't think there's anything.
Yeah,
left
I
to
don't think so
talk
either.
about.
All right, guys, this is your chance now. You can make a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting at 8:27 PM on April 26th.
I'll second that.
Amen. Discussion?
None from me.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, and thank you, everyone, for a fantastic evening.
And if those scouts want to come up here, I'll talk to you.
Yep.